Welcome to Cross Platform Podcast, where we discuss how to solve productivity problems across platforms. I'm Augusto Pinaud,
And I'm Art Gelwicks.
and we are in our new section today, and we have a couple of things this week. We are going to talk apparently a lot about Microsoft, and for the people who don't know, this week is Microsoft Build, so it's kind of impossible to avoid it. But we will talk about Outlook, Microsoft OneNote, Microsoft on the cloud, the citizen development take the center stage at build. And there is one little news from Apple. That is where we're going to start. And apparently, Apple is in talks to buy EA Games. And Disney and Amazon are also trying to see who can grab it first. But for Apple, with what they have done with Apple Arcade and all these games, it seems to be a great acquisition to get that and put them into that program.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mixed opinion when it comes to gaming companies being acquired. And I specifically am looking at companies like Blizzard who were acquired because their AAA games often wind up suffering because of that.
Yeah.
Uh, so, for example, when you look at things like, I want to say, what's it called? Starfield? Yeah, I think it's Starfield, which is the next AAA coming out of Blizzard. It's been delayed. So I'm hoping that EA, if they do go through the complete acquisition process and everything, when the dust settles, they're either able to maintain their development schedule or accelerate it. Uh, I think that's one of the challenges we always see with now this being gaming
It's a
technology.
challenge
This
with
is
any
yeah,
acquisition.
yeah. We have to watch with all of our acquisitions, and I'll throw it back into the productivity space. When you look at Notion, who acquired Automate.io,
Mhm.
immediately everybody who was looking at Notion going, "Oh wow, they're gonna expand and add on automation capabilities." And no, they shut them down, and they've integrated the developers into the Notion group.
Right.
So you have to always watch that, especially with technologies that you get very connected to. No pun intended. Uh, that they can go by the wayside very quickly in an acquisition. And you need to be aware that if it's something that you're using and it gets acquired, have an exit plan just in case. You may not need it. Hopefully you won't, but you can
Yeah,
never
you make
tell
me
when.
think. You make me think. It's not a gaming company, but when HP acquire Palm, and everybody was like, "Oh, the new trios are going to be HP branded, and they're going to
Mhm.
be great, and they're going to eat the." No more Palm. They got the IP and close the company.
Yeah, that's really a it's really a concern, and it's unfortunate that it happens that way. I mean, that's the way businesses operate. But always be cognizant of that fact. Take that, especially anything that crosses platforms or has multiple points of contact or has a level of complexity to it. Maintaining that complexity is often not something that's desired in an acquisition. They're acquiring for talent rather than for property.
All right.
So,
Well, the rest of our news are going to be all into plain the OneNote design overall, the Microsoft in the cloud,
mhm.
the new Outlook. So, as the Microsoft expert, I'm going to let you go because
Well,
I will try not to get too much into my sub opera on this.
that's okay. That's okay. And here's the most important thing, and I do want to start this gateway because I don't want this to be so Microsoft centric that people are like, this is fine. Keep in mind, everything that I'm talking about here is technically cross platform. It is cloud based.
Mhm.
They're centralized on using PWAs, using the ability for just straight browser based. So it really doesn't matter what platform you're using or what physical underlying platform. You can still use the technologies. I use a Chromebook a great deal of the time, and I use it with Office.com. So you have those capabilities. Now, that being said, this is announcement season. I mean, we've already gone through Google I/O. Now we've had Microsoft Build. Next thing coming up is WWDC for Apple. And Microsoft has gone through their normal litany of this development functionality is here, this new platform available. They released a device called Project Voltaire. Voltaire? Volterra. Volterra, that's what it is,
Okay.
which is actually an ARM-based computer for developers to be able to build Windows applications specifically designed to run on Windows ARM-based solutions. It's an interesting device. I don't know that it's something for mass consumption. But what I found fascinating is, one, Outlook is finally getting updates. It's being unified with the web version to make it look and act more like the web. Well, in a business environment, Outlook is kind of the bread and butter. It's
Right.
If you had like 1 and 2, actually 1, 2, and 3, it would be Outlook, Word, and Excel. That's your top 3. Well, Outlook's finally getting caught up and having this functionality addressed. And there's a lot of articles out there right now on the specifics of it. I have been using the web version of Outlook quite a bit as of late. Matter of fact, as much as I use the desktop version. I have to say I like it. The capabilities are there, the functionality is there, and the upside is I don't have to worry about having a localized copy of it. So when I think about my platform and what device I'm going to use, I now have Outlook as a viable option on just about every device. So we're seeing that press. The second part that I want to raise up, if you've watched anything that I've been in, you know I'm a OneNote fan. I live and die by OneNote. It's a wonderful application. We're finally starting to see some major improvements in OneNote. They're unifying the desktop to the web version. They're starting to unify the functionalities, and they're starting to bring out new features that they're bringing out in other parts of the platform integrated into OneNote. Matter of fact, my tip for this week talks specifically about a feature in OneNote that I've been testing as part of the beta test program. Where I want this to be important when it comes from a news perspective is the fact that we are seeing investments in the web-based technologies. And it's not just Microsoft. Google talked a lot about it during Google I/O and being able to have their cloud-based solutions. Microsoft, if you watched it, they were all about Azure, which is their database system, being able to have cloud-hosted security, cloud-hosted integrated server systems. Windows 365, or Microsoft 365, no, Windows 365, running a virtual copy of Windows in the cloud. These are all capabilities. So if you have that need, it doesn't matter really what device that you're running, you have that capability available to you. And finally, the last thing that I think is really important that they were laying on the table is this press in the low-code, no-code development space. Now, I know this is not normally a development show. We normally don't talk about developer topics. But the ability to create applications and solutions without having to be a hardcore, down and dirty developer is very empowering. And this stems off of things like Microsoft's Power Automate and their Power Apps capabilities. When you start to think about being able to build an application that you can run on a mobile device, that you can run on your tablet, you can run on your desktop, and know that you can build with user interfaces, with database connections, with external hooks, without having to know how to write the line level code, more form editing than anything else. It really starts to open up opportunities for you with your platform, because now you don't have to say, can I create this solution on Windows? Well, how do I make it available on my phone? How do I make it available on my tablet? Well, that's what these low-code, no-code solutions provide you the capability to do.
That it worked very, very well, because not only that, it gives something that, in my perspective, is key. That is, it gives the same experience regardless the device. So you change from your phone to your computer to your tablet, and the experience is similar. And I think from the cross-platform perspective, from the productivity perspective, that is key.
Yeah, this is the type of thing that no matter what company, because Microsoft highlighted it so strongly in their presentation this week, it's important that it's being bubbled up. But this is something to take into consideration regardless of the platform you're using. Let's say, take something very simple. You're gathering information. You need to have a form to be able to pull stuff together, capture data on the fly, and then put it into a repository. like a data table. Google can do that. Microsoft can do that. Zoho can do that. Airtable can do that. They all have these kinds of capabilities. Notion
Right.
can do that. That kind of cloud-based solution for the data gathering and functionality. Now, while it's not a truly heavy-duty database, it does meet the need set. And that's one of the things that we talk about all the time is understand your need and then use the simplest solution to meet that need. Well, these low-code, no-code solutions are viable tools for that. I've built applications in Power Apps, for example, in a 2-week turnaround time that have dealt with hundreds of thousands of rows of data. It's a built-in capability of it. They've designed the solutions to be able to do that, to give you that functionality. So if you're someone who works in a cross-platform environment, you're not entirely sure what your application is going to run on, you're not a deep developer, then maybe look into these. Do some
Right.
exploring. Like I said, Microsoft's a good solution, but there are other ones out there. Start to dig into the low code, no code solutions and see what you can come up with. See if there are ways for you to meet those requirements. Easiest introduction for it, I'll be honest with you, look at the Forms apps. Look at things like Airtable, look at things like Cognito Forms, JotForm, uh, Google Forms, for example, Microsoft Form. All of those have the ability to capture data and load it someplace. It's a nice way to see how that kind of drag and drop interface can be used to build an application, make it available on multiple platforms, and then give you the options to work with it. So yeah, Build is a developers conference. No question about it. It's all for developers. But there's a lot of stuff that comes out of it that isn't just developer centric. And it should be a good opportunity for you to get, if you're not a Microsoft person, to get inspired with different ideas as to say, hey, this is a neat technology. I want to try this. How can I get access to this or something equivalent to it? As I said, we're going to talk about it in the tips. There's a technology that's actually been around years and years and years. It just happens to be integrated into one of my favorite apps now. And it's a neat opportunity, I think, to use that technology. You're on mute.
Of course. I'm looking forward to what is going to come out of that. Do we have anything else for our news?
No, well, I have one last thing, and this was just my favorite thing we've talked about on a couple other shows. Google has finally released or given Samsung permission to release Google Assistant onto Galaxy Watch 4s.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So now instead of Bixby, you can load Google Assistant on there and you can have the same interactions with it that you have through your phone. I installed it when it came out on release. It's a very nice interface, works just fine. It's very reminiscent of what you have on the phone. There is one little quirk I've noticed, at least in my setup. It does not talk back to me. So when you go to do something, for example, you tell it to take a reminder, it will visually show you that it's taken the reminder, but there's no voice prompt back. I believe that's pretty much standard right now with it. I don't think it's something specific to my configuration. But that said, I've used it for everything I was using normally, and it works just fine. It's something that's taken way too long to get here. And now that it's on the Samsung platform, I'm hoping that when the Pixel Watch hits the market, we're finally going to see Google Assistant on the watches get the groundswell of support behind it that it needs to really be adopted.
Well, let's wait for that to happen. And in the meantime, follow us where you like to listen a podcast, like us, subscribe to us, and leave us a review. You can interact with us in personalproductivity.club, and that link will change soon. We will stay on personalproductivity.club, but the link will change. And we're Augusto Pinaud and Art Gelwicks. See you next time on your favorite device.